Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the fifth show of BW Hotelier. Today we are live and we have the threesome here. So I don't have to introduce them, but let me just begin. I'll start with my elder, my senior, and my brother from my school, Diwan Gautam Anand. I mean, who doesn't know Diwan Gautam Anand in the hospitality business in Delhi? And anybody and everybody who's got to do with anything with food, right? Diwan Gautam Anand is the former executive vice president and member of the divisional management committee at ITC Hotels. And he's the founding trustee of Cuisine India Foundation. He's a man with a lot of josh, a lot of chutzpah, brings in a lot of knowledge, and me being his proverbial forever younger brother, so we keep chatting a lot.
Hello.
We got talking the other day, and I said, Gautam, this is what I want to do, chat up in Punjabi, and he gave me the idea. He said, ye karte hain, kya rahega? I said, bilkul badhiya hai.
Because of these two guys.
And I didn't want to name them yet. And then he spoke to me about Kunal, and I just kind of hugged Kunal. So who doesn't know you, Kunal? You are the infant terrible of TV18 and the Indian Masters. Nobody you haven't ripped apart. There'll be a lot of people who would be wanting to get back to you, but then that's just about as much they'll be able to do, because they just be able to think without getting to you.
Naughty boy, naughty boy.
But we've tried to be equally bad to everybody.
So Kunal is, as you would see, he's somebody who's completely into food, wine, and maza. Like a typical Bombaya, a Mumbaikar, food writer, an author, a television presenter, and a travel and food documentarian. So, and I'm sure the next hour and a half, you'd get to know Kunal as we've not known him up front. Now let me get down to Antoine. Right? Now, heard a lot from Gautam, read a lot about you, right? And it's a pleasure to have you here. Antoine is somebody who, given his frame, doesn't look like somebody who's into food, but he is, right? He's writing, he chefs it up, he cooks it up. He's a journalist, a radio commentator, and a food consultant. And he's the one who gave us the coin, threesome. Threesome is quite a handful to handle, but then here are the three, Gautam, Kunal, and Antoine. Without much ado, BW Hotelier, let me say this, is delighted to have you all three together on one screen at one time. Could I have asked for more? Well, greedy, yes, but this is beautiful. Thank you. Over to you, Gautam. The dice is rolled to you.
Thank you, Bhuvnesh. Very kind of you. The problem with having younger brothers is that they are always younger. Okay. I've always said that, I have, and between you and me, when I became 40, I had a younger brother who's never turned 40. When I turned 50, I have younger brothers who never turned 50. Then I turned 60, and I have younger brothers who never turned 60. What is this about younger brothers who never turned 60? And here I am at 62, and I have another younger brother called Bhuvnesh. Bhuvnesh, how old are you here?
59.
ठीक है. That's a damn big problem.
ये पूछना जरूरी था?
Yeah.
I can also be a younger brother.
I'm
also a younger brother only.
Yeah, that's the problem. The problem is that I'm sort of the Gautam in the muddle. And by the way, Bhuvnesh, before we get down to Antoine, be very careful about his pronunciation. पता है वो बहुत touchy है.
कितना टच कहाँ करते हो?
हाँ, मैं बता रहा हूँ वो touchy है. The first time I met Antoine, I made a boo-boo. मैं तो Antoine कर दिया. वो तो मेरे से 2-3 साल बात ही नहीं करी यार उसने. So then I went into one of those Google pronunciation. बड़े मुश्किल से फिर Antoine को मैंने pronounce किया. फिर I had to do some service recovery with him. I called him to Delhi to give him a free meal, which Antoine accepted with alacrity, and then we landed up in Nizamuddin. Oh, I'm having fun, huh? So we went to Nizamuddin, and guess where Antoine took us? We went to Nizamuddin, to this fantastic hole in the wall, which has been there for the last 800 years. And they are
800 years.
Yeah, it's one of the oldest. They do what they call as. And Kunal, stop eating. You've been eating.
I'm not eating. I'm sorry, but I was just trying to adjust the air conditioning. That's all.
Yeah, but there are some parts of you where you're wearing nothing. You don't need any air conditioning there. No?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing. Or dikhao.
No. I think but let me tell you, between you and me, Kunal, for you, I'm telling him, vadi asa leke aaye. Vado asa leke aaye. Anyway, so Antoine, then we went to this. So this, the Khamiri roti or the double roti was actually the origin of which is Nizamuddin, which is, the older Delhi. So everybody says, I'm going to old Delhi and all that. Very rubbish that Shahjahanabad is only 400 years old. Nizamuddin, where we went, Antoine, me and some pretty girls, we went into older Delhi, and we were having our Khamiri roti or double roti or whatever you call it. And of course, some unmentionable nice food. And we got a call from the local Maulvi Sahib. And he said, because Antoine has arrived from Bombay and he has a name which we can't pronounce, Maulvi Sahib wants to especially meet with Antoine. So there, me, Antoine, and only the men, we went. And guess which mosque, Kunal, guess which the mosque was?
Well, which one? The big Jawahar?
The Markaz.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah. That's right next to your house, isn't it?
We went to the Markaz, and they were they were about 500 or 600 people this is like a seminary. There were 500 and 600 people in the lobby. They were all doing their prayers. Am I right? Antoine, do you remember?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was like a fantastic Gautam. I mean, the food that we ate there, that was unbelievable. I mean, and straight out of the bhatti, like everything just cooked on the deshi. I mean, very, very memorable for me.
Yeah.
And to go there, actually, I'd like to go back again, and because I believe there's some poet graves over there as well, isn't it?
Yeah, Ghalib, Mirza Ghalib.
In around that area.
This is therefore Nizam. As I told you that day, but then you didn't give me any plug for it. You didn't write about it. My free meal was all gone in vain. I was so nice to you. There was no plug, no mention, nothing. Nothing comes from nothing. Nah, if you'd give me one plug to say Gautam Anand of older Delhi took me to this fantastic restaurant and he gave me food from 800 years ago, but no plug, nothing happened. So anyway, next time I take you, please give me a plug. And Kunal, if I take you, please.
No, can I interrupt and ask a few more questions about this place? So is it a restaurant in Nizamuddin? Are you all eating on the streets? Or where was all this great food? And what was it beyond the Khamiri roti?
Yeah, so you won't know, you're going to start me up, but anyway. So the Central Asians who came to Delhi, Delhi was, I know a lot of historians get very upset because it was it was a complicated place where, it was on the periphery of, let's say, Prithviraj Chauhan's empire, which was in Ajmer. And it was on the periphery of Harshvardhan of Thanesar, who was the king in Ujjain. So this was like one patch of land next to the water. Okay. And the Central Asians descended here, hordes of them came here, and they weren't very happy with Kunal, especially because they said, this Kunal, he's a parochial guy, he sits in his quiet room and he has a thali with those donas and all that. And they actually settled in this area called Nizamuddin and Saket and so on and so forth. And they came from bustling cities. And remember that they introduced this ready-to-eat foods. Okay. So what we went to, Kunal, Antoine, which we'll go, hopefully, God willing, soon is a ready-to-eat food cafe, or so you can eat there.
Mhm.
But the principal medium of these cafes or these bread shops were ready-to-eat food. So they were so they were prêt à manger. You can pick up kofta, you can pick up korma, you can pick up.
Okay, so you take the food home in little
Yeah,
parcels.
they have about
Sitting space as well.
5 or 6, yeah, 5 or 6 people, 8 people can sit there. But essentially, the Central Asians, when they came as bachelors. No, it was
Correct.
so this was not ready-to-eat food, and principally what they started out doing is breads, and they introduced that iron tandoor here. Okay.
Yeah.
And, the iron tandoor is contrarian to what we are used to, that mud tandoor. And this khamiri roti basically is yeasted bread, etc. And well, it's been okay. It may not be 800 years, 600 years, 700 years, but it certainly precedes Chandni Chowk or Old Delhi, as we call it, by about 300-400 years. And this is during the Delhi Sultanate. And so we actually went there. We had this. What did we have? I think we had Shami Kebab, which was outstanding. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And I can see Kunal is now feeling hungry and summoning. And we had. And by the way, I've got this specially for you. Okay. So can you see my Sikh
What are you doing?
Oh, yeah.
Those Sikhs, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah, this is for you, Kunal. Hello.
Aha.
Antoine, you already had your fill, so I can't give you any more. So
yeah, I've got my pork with me. So
yeah, so when we went to this restaurant, and we thought we'd chat, and Antoine will give me this plug and all that. But the guy kept eating, man, and he was silent, And for 1.5 hours, the guy very smacked into Shami Kebab. Tell us, you tell us, na, Antoine.
Yeah, and I remember we had some koftas and all, some really big. And there's a really famous place in Nizamuddin which we actually left out, and which everyone which it's the touristy place where I think you quickly kind of pulled me aside and said, no, we're not going there. Is that Kareem's or something?
Yeah,
what was the name?
That's
why are we?
This Java
It's like a cliche, na? You see, the cliche is like a cliche. The question is, why would I, Ivan Gautamanand, the one and only, take the unpronounceable Antoine Louis, all the way from Mumbai, right?
To Kareem's.
And didn't give me a damn plug, all right? And take him to Kareem, no big deal. So Kareem, you can very, yeah, the reason I took you there is because these are, hole in the walls who don't have
hole in the walls, yeah. We have literally hole in the walls, dhabas, almost dhaba style places where, there's this guy sitting right at the front, sitting over the charcoal, sitting over.
Okay.
So in a way, it almost reminded me of parts of Lucknow where you go to, and the guys, he's got all his kadais and all of that.
All there, they're serving you breakfast.
And they're serving straight from that, and he's bending over and eating the bread in there, pulling it out, and it's very, very heavy food. And Gautam was just kind of feeding me. It just seemed to be a stream of meat coming our way, and we of course said no. We never said no to anything. So and we got really full up. So it was quite something which I have never seen that side of Delhi before. To eat that kind of food, that kind of rich food, but really, really, in a sense, also very simple. It's not like it was heavy, but very, very tasty. And man, you really need to walk it off after you have a meal like that. And then Delhi, after that, I think we went, Gautam, to the hotel, right? To the welcome group where you did the Delhi this thing.
Tell them about the markas, na?
The markas, and
our claim to fame. We, Kunal, you're the only guy who's rich and famous, right?
Yes.
But our claim to fame, man.
I accept the compliment.
So we have been into the markas, which became notorious for all the wrong reasons.
Yes, right now.
You can imagine we were witness to to history.
In the making.
In
Yeah,
the,
yeah. I mean, we went up there, we sat. I mean, and Gautam, as usual, of course, charmed the Maulvi. But it was like really fascinating going up there, going and seeing everyone, like this huge hostel. Everyone sitting in rows and eating food, like like from one, not a common plate, but everyone being served almost like
Langar.
like a langar. Yeah, exactly. Pretty much like that.
So if I may interject and ask this question. So the food that you all ate on the streets at Nizamuddin and the food that was being served in the mosque, was there any connection in terms of the cuisine, in terms of the people who were making this food? Was there a connection?
We didn't.
Besides both being Muslim food.
We didn't actually see where the food came.
Sorry?
Yeah, it was very, very different. I think the food that we ate outside was much richer.
Okay.
This seemed to be a lot more simpler, more like a langar style, and where it was very basic. It wasn't like, at least I didn't notice very much of the kebabs and the koftas. It was more like a rice, a kind of a dal and a meat kind of preparation. So just enough, because it's a free hostel, I would imagine. And they're cooking for, I think it was 2 or 3 levels. So there were like hundreds of people sitting. So obviously it had to be something that could be simple and quickly executed, I would imagine.
I think there were 1,000 people, man. There were so many people. There were thousands of people. Absolutely.
Kunal, if I was to give you a parallel, it may not be a parallel, but then you have a similar kind of a scenario in Mahim, Bandra and all.
Yes, much lesser than.
There
are a lot of people waiting outside, but that's this people who are sitting out on the road for people donate food.
Well, so that is zakat, yeah.
Yeah, what is it called? Zakat. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I've done it once because I was very curious. I also wanted to taste the food, which I couldn't. But so you stop the car at that point of time and you say, okay, feed 50 people. And they charge you whatever, 20 rupees per head or 100 rupees, whatever, And then they count 50 people and take them inside the restaurant. And then they are fed some sort of salan and roti. Normally roti, not chawal for some reason. And but I would like to taste that food in Mahim, which I haven't yet done.
So
I wanted to just, it's a passing comment, but Antoine spoke about a graveyard near where you went, and Gautam said Mirza Ghalib is buried there. Is that?
Yeah. His mazar is there, bang next to it.
You know what?
Bang next to it.
You asked me the question, and I'll tell you why the poor man is buried there.
But he died, that's why he was buried there. But
no, because they say, and it's interesting. See, the reason why we got yanked off into the bunker is because the owner of our hole in the wall, which doesn't have a name, but has been there for about 200 years, 300 years. He believes in this faith, in the Marathas.
Okay.
And we had actually initially gone to the Dargah of Hazrat Nizamuddin.
Okay.
Now there is a contrarian belief in the what they call the silsila. The silsila is what the Sufis brought to India. Okay.
Correct.
And they had to adapt to Indian conditions. So there was, so there is Qawwali, which is like bhajan.
Correct.
Then the taweez is like what you and I wear, the dhaga. Okay. And you have all this flowers and the resonance of what they call in temples and all that. Okay. So the Puritans don't like it. So when I told the owner of the hole in the wall that I'm going to go there, because it's a tradition, I'm a Nizamuddin guy, so for me, and I think probably one of the reasons I actually passed from modern school, and although I did between you and me and my younger brother and all that, I failed, once. So my mother determinedly went to tie the dhaga at the Dargah of Nizamuddin, Hazrat Nizamuddin. Since that day, and so we've been going there for, naturally you're so grateful that you go once in a while, and and they have something known as, so ziyarat. Ziyarat means that you do a visit of the graves. And that's how I discovered that not only is Hazrat Nizamuddin buried there, but so is Amir Khusro, who possibly gave us the Hindustani language, And so is Mirza Ghalib, and so is Princess Jahanara, who was probably the most important woman in the Mughal Empire after Nur Jahan, or before Nur Jahan. Nur Jahan was, of course, Emperor Jahangir's wife, but Princess Jahanara was Shah Jahan's daughter, and she's buried there. But very often they were buried here because they were not faithful enough to be buried in the Fatehpuri burial ground. Okay. So typically, if you ask somebody in Fatehpuri and Mirza Ghalib, because Mirza Ghalib a little luft fe main tujhe kya kahun zalim kambakht tune kabhi pi hi nahi, a little.
Correct.
So I think what used to happen, and so did incidentally Princess Jahanara. She loved having what they call as, and it's true, it's very true. And I have some roots in Himachal. So Sansar Chand, who was the king of Kangra, he was never part of the Mughal Empire. He was supposed to send snow every day by horseback to Jahanara.
Is that so?
Yeah, and there are letters which tell, and she's complaining that, on some days the snow is melted because what she liked is Shiraz wine and rose water and snow. Okay. She would drink this daily, and, sorry to disappoint you, but the Shiraz wine those days, as I was not red, it was white. Okay. I also went and told one Persian vineyard in Napa Valley, I know a lot about Shiraz wine. He said, you know nothing. The original Shiraz or Syrah or Shiraz wine was actually white. It was not red. Okay. Anyway, to cut a long story short, yes, we went there and we preceded this. And the reason why this guy, so the owner said that the Maulvi Saab is calling. Okay. So the Maulvi Saab said that if you ever need to dua or you need prayers, please come to me. He didn't say that, but don't go to the dargah. Okay. They don't like the dargah because of the rituals in the dargah. Okay. You go to the dargah, as you may have been to a dargah in Mumbai, Kunal. They are singing and dancing, and
and see, it goes against. I don't want to get religious about this, but it goes against strict Islamic Wahhabi tenets. Singing is not allowed, and burying people and praying to anybody beyond. Anybody who's not God is also not allowed. So they've always had that trouble. But it's interesting about graveyards. I was in Ahmedabad many years ago, and there is a restaurant in Ahmedabad called New Lucky Restaurant.
Oh, wow.
It's not very old. It's about 80 years old, or 60 or 80 years old. And New Lucky Restaurant is built on a graveyard.
Oh.
But they haven't disturbed the graves. So you have got tables, graves right next to you. And then they have protected the graves with, just so that you don't step on them and all, with grills. But so it's a full restaurant with multiple graves in the restaurant and tables alongside.
Oh, wow.
It's not great food. It's just sort of normally Irani sort of food, Muslimi Chilia kind of food. But think about it, actually sitting in a restaurant which has graves in it.
Good God.
Interesting, right? Interesting, no? That's what they say. We should not disturb the dead. So,
but how do we get permission for something like that?
I think what we need to Kunal is that, we should go there on a Chandni night or something.
I'm not coming on a Chandni night with you anywhere, especially not to a graveyard.
I'm telling you, man.
But I want to, again, this becomes into a slightly religious thing, but you asked me how do they get permission. In most places in the world, you are allowed to reuse religious places. There are churches being made into bars, and so it's only in this sort of Indian thing where once a place has been sort of pointed out for religious, that you can't do anything else with it. eventually a mosque
Yeah.
is a hall. God is not supposed to reside in a mosque. Unlike a Hindu temple where the God resides in the temple. And churches all over the world have turned into homes, chapels have turned into homes, into restaurants. So that's why I suppose all that property was owned by somebody who said, to hell with it, I'm opening a restaurant here.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called.
And you should check it out. If you ever go to Ahmedabad, it's not so much for the food, just for the experience of going to a restaurant with graves in it.
So it's called in the Sufi in the Sufi belief, it's actually called ziyarat. It's part of that tradition of visiting graves and so on. So anyway,
and the Sufis got together and opened a big hotel called Sufitel. Oh God, what a bad joke.
On that very happy note, very unhappy note, let's say. So tell me, what has been your favorite lockdown story, Antoine?
Oh God, lockdown.
I mean, something between the three of us only. Obviously, there is, we don't want.
Yeah, no, just the three of us.
Yeah, it's just between the three of us, and because Bhuvnesh is my younger brother, he will keep it between the cover. So, what is your favorite? I know that you've been doing it with. I know you've been going out with the dogs. Okay.
Yeah.
Breaking all kinds of curfew. In fact, there's a song which I have for you. It's called "Who Took the Dogs Out." All right. Much later. In fact, so what is your favorite lockdown story?
I don't know if it's a lockdown story so much as it's a lockdown observation. And like you mentioned, I've been taking the dogs out for a walk, and it's for the first time that I have noticed how clear the skies are and how clearly you can see the evening star,
right,
along with the moon. And I've taken several pictures of that. Never ever seen that in Bombay before.
Right.
That kind of clarity. Of course, the other thing in Bombay, in Colaba, it's like it's so unbelievable that it is finally quiet. It is such a noisy place otherwise, and one of the things that I'm kind of finding difficult to reconcile with is once the city actually gets back on its legs, how am I actually going to manage going out with so many people being on the streets anymore? It feels so unreal that it's something that I'd only see at 12 or 1 o'clock in the night, and then suddenly you're seeing it through the day. So for me, this whole change of environment has been something quite strange.
Yeah, I agree with you. But with the curfew that is currently on between 9 and 5, I suspect things will yes.
The nights will be still quieter. But I have bad news for everybody is that I stepped out today.
Oh, you did?
It's back to normal. It's back to normal. There were traffic jams.
Yeah.
I went into town for some work.
Tishi Mishi?
Well, no, Tishi in times of lockdown is a little difficult. In times of social distancing is a bit difficult. Yes.
What about physical distancing?
Socially, physically, everything.
But there are some parts of you which you left behind, apparently.
You're embarrassing me in front of 3 million people, I think, right now.
That's what you said. Now, this is very interesting. You said you went out in your very luxury car. Then you had gone for a meeting, a liaison d'argeries, you said. And then you kept talking about social distancing. And then we are not talking about physical distancing. And then we've seen some parts of you which you left behind.
And I quite forgot that I got out from my chair to put on the switch. And I have exposed my wonderful legs to a lot of people.
Yeah, so when we, and that's why I was saying that, Asi, vati aasa leke aaya, because when you went to switch on the switch, and the Punjabis don't say switch, they say twitch. When you say twitch, right?
But I'll tell you what my observation of this lockdown is that, is that one, it has been in a place like Mumbai, it's been horrible for lots of people. We have been lucky enough we are lucky enough that we can afford to sit at home for 3 months, 7 months, or 4 months, or whatever it has been. Of course, all our income has also taken a decent beating. So if I have to complain, I can complain about my money, my income going down. But there are people worse off than we are. Yet, I have seen such tremendous enterprise. For example, my building is in a quiet lane, which is away from the main road and away from markets. It's a quiet sort of tree-lined thing. When the housing society locks you down, it becomes very difficult to even get vegetables or whatever unless your housing society has managed to organize it for you. There's a panwala outside my gate who normally sells cigarettes. It's not even a panwala, he's a cigarette wala, okay? And cigarettes were shut and banned and shops were closed.
Right.
This man used to find his way to a wholesale market every morning, and he turned into a vegetable vendor. Slowly, he turned into a bread vendor. He started selling eggs and necessary things, which means what is he doing? He's trying to survive, and also he's showing enterprise. Yeah, and that is what I have noticed about a lot of people here. Women who were domestic maids, who suddenly and I'm bringing this up seriously. I know I'm supposed to be the humor quotient in this thing, but a lot of people have actually thrown their maids out of the house in a very selfish manner because they don't want to be responsible for the maid and what disease that she might have brought in. So they're maids who are jobless and everybody's not continuing paying their salaries. So these ladies have got together and started doing dabbas. Oh. Because every building has people who don't have a cook at home.
So they're delivering dabbas into your building?
Yeah, they're delivering dabbas. So, of course, Zomato has done over 2.5 crore deliveries in the lockdown. They just put up an ad on social media. Over 2 crore 15 lakhs or something deliveries in the lockdown.
Wow.
And so, there has been a great amount of, we are survivors, man. Indians, we can grumble and we can say what a bad state we are in. But when it comes to the individual,
yeah,
we are great at this. I have to just say hats off to people.
Yeah. I love the story.
Kunal, you found some. Sorry. You found some really interesting dabba places as well, right?
So it's not interesting from an exotic point of view, but so my domestic help, she, besides doing work in my house, she also runs a food stall on the road where she does lunches for office goers.
Fantastic.
Now, the building stopped all what you call top mates coming. So anybody who's permanently in your house can stay, but nobody can come in and out of the building.
So, part-timers are not being allowed.
Part-timers not allowed.
Yeah.
So she then lost 2-3 assignments that she's got in the building, and there are no food stalls on the road. Nobody's going out to eat. So she was So she was sending me a dabba every day of home-cooked Maharashtrian food. And as luck may have it, her building, they found some 2 cases positive and they locked the building down.
Oh.
And I'm stuck with no food again. And so what do you do? So I was standing at the gate of my building talking with the watchman, and the watchman was sitting and having his lunch. And I looked into his dabba and I looked into his plate. And I said, kya hai? So garam rotiyan hai, sabzi hai, kuch dal hai, ya, like masoor or moong, I said, where do you get this dabba from? She said, lady across the road is making it for me. I said, there is no COVID case in that building. No. I said, to phone do. So I took her telephone number and I started ordering. I said, boss, I can't have vegetarian food every day. I need 3 times a week. I need something non-vegetarian, at least egg if nothing else. And I spent a good 2 months of eating her dabba until I got bored of it. But but it was really wholesome, cheap, 60 rupees a meal.
And
Wow.
delicious, and
Wow.
delicious.
60 rupees a meal, yeah, when it was non-veg. If it's veg, it's not 45 bucks or something.
So not just these people who are supplying dabbas and all.
Mm.
ITC, all the hotels are now into Swiggy, Zomato,
Mm.
delivering home food.
Mm.
So everybody is locked down, everybody is suffering. So drawing you all back to the hospitality state, who better than Gautam, Kunal, and Antoine?
Mm.
So, what's your take, Gautam?
Yeah, so Antoine asks all these awkward questions. So he put me on the mat on what he calls, I can't even remember what he said. He insisted on something known as contactless dining, right? So if I was to clone contactless dining, it's like playing billiards, right? And I don't want to paraphrase the billiards with you know what. Okay. So Kunal, you would probably come back with a response and say, okay, this is, yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Dash billiards, okay.
correct.
Yeah, so so that would be dash billiards, contactless dining. And then contactful dining would be like playing kabaddi.
Mm.
So I tried to respond to Antoine and I said, look, the future lies in contact light dining. Okay. When I said contact light dining, it means that you will have to change the way, for instance, if I go to my favorite restaurant, I'll be very happy to take Kunal and Antoine as long as both of you give me a plug for it. But there's no free meals, all right? So, and my favorite restaurant is the ITC Moria Dampo, right? So I have every intention of going there. And I think that's what's going to happen is that there's going to be contact light to the extent that all this platter to plate and all that rubbish is going away. It's not going to work out. So there'll have to be a thali or what the Dampuk calls a corn or the Royal Vega, Kunal, if you remember when we...
The thali, yes, all those years ago.
Yeah, all those years ago, what we call the khasa. Okay. And so I think that's going to be the principal player because, so I was telling Antoine, I said, but it's not unimaginable for us to do that because before the Central Asians came, everybody was eating alone. No, we were eating thalis or out of donas and so on and so forth, and that seemed to be the preferred way of eating. Right.
Are you, Gautam, saying pre-plated stuff coming straight to your thing and no sharing?
I think so.
No sharing is what you're saying?
Yeah. So I think plating is good because you've been covering a lot of plating, and so has Antoine. Right? A lot of this food that we now have in Mumbai, all the restaurants that both you rascals have been sending me to in Mumbai, including that unpronounceable Bhojanalay. What is that Bhojanalay that you guys sent me to?
Thakkar Bhojanalay.
Tucker. Yeah, Tucker.
Thakkar.
Huh? Khattar.
Thakkar.
Okay. So everywhere, everything has been everything is pre-plated, right? Including, so I'm saying that seems to be a much more sensible way of, of handling this, what we call as light interaction. Because, this is one example. And I was giving him this example of what happened in London. And Kunal, you are constantly in London more than you are in Bombay. And because you're this theatre person. So when you are at the theatre, and then you go to one of those nice expensive theatres where somebody obviously buys your ticket, hapless souls like us. And you know what happens with the blighties? They've been drinking. The reason why they have this fantastic empire because they've been drinking for generations, right? They start in the morning and they, chalo, colony bana. So I was telling Antoine that, when I went to on one of these theatres, which I paid for, because there's such a rush for beverage in the intermission, that they give you a number. Okay. And you can pre-order your drinks and they give you a number and the drinks are placed in a particular pantry or a sideboard.
Correct.
What you do is during instead of rushing to the bartender and trying to bribe him,
Get your drink. Yeah.
get your drink. So I think that's what also going to happen. So I see that there will be lots of these fantastic brands that will open. But you'll have to rework the buffet, certainly. You'll have to rework this platter to plate. It cannot happen. And but so as you rightly said, Kunal, pre-plated, and the kata.
It's Thakur with a little Thakur.
But Punjabis can't pronounce saket. They say saket.
Skate.
Skate, and so skate, and by the way, Maruti is Mruti. Colony. And then there's the famous Prime Minister of India whose name I can't take, and he always says, "Hello, Kunal, Antoine, I want sport." Sport.
Oh, let's 3 guesses who this Prime Minister is. Yeah. It's not our current Prime Minister.
No, not sport. He won't. He's
he won't.
He's Tata.
Yeah. So who? Gujral?
No.
No.
Sport. Yeah.
But what about the economy of the sort of F&B business? How are we going to be able to distance? Is this sort of physical distancing thing going to happen? Are restaurants going to then run at 50%, actually at 50% of capacity?
Yeah.
How will they survive in this kind of scenario with the kind of ridiculous rents that you pay in Mumbai and maybe in Delhi also?
It's about your lease now. Therefore,
it makes sense to me.
Sorry, Antoine, you have an opinion? Go ahead.
Yeah, I said it doesn't make sense to me how anyone could possibly be, could make money out of staying open for at just 50% or 30%, which I think 30% is what they're talking about internationally and also locally, like having that amount of hours. But people need 100%, or if it's not through the week, at least if it's certain couple of days, and for the other 5 days. And if you're saying that you can't squeeze people in on those days as well, I'm not sure how it will work. I mean, the other option, and I think something that Gautam also brought up the other day, was that you don't have lunch and dinner timings anymore. It becomes an all-day kind of, 12 to 12 kind of a service.
A very good thought.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise, I don't see how you can kind of.
It'll have to be 8. It'll have to be 8 because I think your curfew starts at 9. So it'll have to be, yeah.
On top of that, they're not allowing bars to open and serve alcohol. So in that case, do you really want to go out if you can't get your glass of wine? Are you just going out to eat the food? Then you might as well order it in.
You can't serve alcohol, right, at restaurants.
I don't think they're allowing bars to open. Alcohol serving will be allowed.
Yeah.
The laws have changed so many
times. The bar space may not be allowed.
Sorry?
The bar space may not be allowed, but alcohol space may not be allowed.
Okay,
but alcohol service should be. I mean,
I guess.
Yeah, so I'm saying that if you pre-order your drinks like we did it, like Kunal does at the theatre in London, and so as I was mentioning, if I'm predisposed to a drink and I get the drink which is ready for me, on the table, I can't pronounce it, but anyway, it's ready there. I have a drink there, and I get my pre-plated or thali at the kata. And so that's what's going to happen. And I think, fortunately for us, technology is going to play a very important role. And as it is between you, me, and Antoine, and and Bhuvnesh, who continues to be my younger brother. God, I have so many younger brothers.
Not with this.
We're running a cashless society anyhow. So technology has actually, made a lot of changes in our lives. So I was talking to Nakul Anand this morning, and he said the same thing. He said, look, he prefers to call it contact light. Okay, and I like what he said. He said you can't have contactless. But the problem is going to be, I think the question that you're asking, Kunal, is for these freestanding restaurants who have leased rentals and so on and so forth.
Yeah. I think 5 stars will manage in some way because they've also got guests in the hotel who have to be fed and all that kind of stuff. But
so I think what's going to happen is that, this is going to be a top-down. Like our evolution, if you look at our evolution, Antoine, Kunal, and this is before we were both born, and Bhuvnesh, because he's my younger brother, was not even conceived. But in the 80s, when I started working for ITC, there were very few restaurants. Okay, there were very few restaurants, and I'm sure there were very few in Mumbai as well. Okay, or there were actually a lot of restaurants, and there were no hotels. But once the hotels started, the restaurants by and large went out of business because they became the new restaurant. So if I remember in Delhi, Connaught Place was rocking in the 70s, but by the time the 80s and 90s, all these Connaught Place restaurants had become, excuse my saying, so places for tishy-mishy. Okay. And so this is going to be what we call the top-down approach. So if Mumbai and Delhi have become great places to eat largely, your own childhood, Kunal, whenever you were a child, you were still a child. God bless you, my boy. But as I said, the Taj, the Shamiana, whatever, you guys are whatever. Yeah, but that's it. So I think, what will happen is that you went to Tanjo and then you went to those other tiffin things that you go to, that lunch home and all the other, so there will have to be a top-down approach to this. So the first food and beverage outlets that must open or should open are the top ones, because they will be able to put the best practices into place. And I tell a lot of restaurants.
There are also the people who will be able to afford to open.
Here is a message for Gautam from Zubin Sangadwala.
Yeah.
There's no bars yet.
No?
No bars yet.
No bars yet. What a pity, Zubin, that, unfortunately, then you and I will have to do what we've been doing for years.
Liquor sale is not allowed. 50% occupancy is only allowed.
Can we do karo bar?
Karo bar.
Can we do karo bar? What a pity. Anyway.
There's kind of a different model, something that I've been thinking about. And, we've all been talking about fine dining and hotel restaurants and all of that. And one area which to me sounds very interesting and which has been ignored is street food. How are people going to interact with street food once a city opens up? That is going to be an absolute necessity, because everyone can go out and eat at restaurants. Right. And one of the things that I have actually observed in Colaba, and there was just this one Udupi place that was open, and not for dining, obviously, just for delivery, but they were also serving tea. And what I noticed in the morning and in the evening, it had basically become like a chai adda. And forget social distancing, forget everything else. There were just people milling around and having their tea because they just wanted to be there. They wanted a place. And I'm quite curious to see how people's attitudes, not so much how they actually dine, how they respond to street food, kind of really affects how they will interpret social distancing and physical distancing. Because there is an overlap between the people who eat at restaurants, maybe not necessarily 5 stars, but in fine dining or whatever, and eat on the street as well. So how will that kind of, affect what we're eating and how we're eating?
May I, Gautam, take this question? So, and this is an observation that a fellow who lives in my building, who throughout the lockdown, because he was essential services, kept driving to his factory in Ghatkopar, okay, or Kurla somewhere. Yeah. Now, when you talk street food, there are two kinds of clientele. One is people who have to eat on the street or regularly eat over there, and two are people who have other options. They can choose to eat on the street or they don't have to eat on the street. So he says in Kurla, all through the lockdown, all vada pav walas were open. all raste ka samosa walas were open, bhajia walas, chai walas, and there was great amount of social distancing and vigilance in areas like Kolaba, Dadar, Prabhadevi, Worli. But as you start going into the slightly more crowded areas of Mumbai, nobody was really supervising anybody, and people who had to eat, and so those places were thriving. My maid's food stall is in a business area which is catering to office goers, but people who are catering to carpenters, who are people to daily plumbers. I think that street food will open up, and people who have to eat, they will eat there. It's a bit like your chai ka tapri. There is no concept of, am I going to die of this food or not? Really, really. I have a right opposite my house, there is a little canopy, which is, the Shiv Sena and the MNS do these things where they keep newspapers on the road for people to read. So you build a little shed, put 3 benches, and daily about 6 newspapers are kept. People come and read and go. It's crowded with people sitting on top of each other, wearing masks. So while we are trying to be careful about some things, I think there is a whole population who, it's just alien. It's just alien. Why should I not eat on the road? And I think certain roadside things will survive in areas where the local people depend on them. You may not get the cow gully in New Marine Lines back. Whatever the street is in New Marine Lines between Cross Maidan and Thing. Or you may not get, Jilani has been at Borivali has been open all through the lockdown. So I think it will survive. Whether we will go
actually.
I'll tell you what is Antoine, if I may, I have a small point here. For some reason, we desecrate this street food because we believe that, it's not hygienic. But actually, some of the food is very hygienic. It's the circumstances that are not hygienic. So I would really urge all government, because there is a need. There's a need to eat on the street. There is a need for these, and these are self-employed people.
Yes.
The other self-employed people in this country are the people who occupy the pedestrian ways, right? I do a lot of trips to my adopted I do a lot of travel on the road, and I find that, I've even encountered a guy at the intersection who's a Nai, barber. On the main road, he's running a barber shop. And is there a traffic star there because the barber is now shaving somebody making chana bhatura, somebody making pakora like you. So it's nothing wrong. I'm saying if the government was to be visionary and start doing food parks, all right, or small food parks where I would, and Kunal would, and Antoine would, and Bhuvnesh would, we would help them with the science and with the academics and the training, right? The only thing that I can't do is I can't give them the land, which the government should give them, and they should all pay a small tax of, and you'll find that it'll be such fat. And we, unlike Singapore, we don't have a food park or a food street. We have food highways. Our food, if one was to travel the length, breadth, and I'm talking about Himalayas, north, south, east, west, you can actually drive for thousands and thousands of miles for 100 years, and you can keep eating on the street. Okay, so it's a good thing. The circumstances have to change. So this is a good time as any for at least the local government, like let's say an MCD in Delhi or the your Mumbai municipal committee or whatever it's called, to provide that infrastructure, running water, hygiene, training, skills. And you'll find that like Singapore is able to invent a nation. That little strip of land made a nation of its hawker food.
So here are a few questions Diwan, Gautam, there are for Diwan, Gautam Anand, for Kunal, everybody have a few questions. The first one for you, Gautam, is from a gentleman who heads the Hospitality Purchase Federation, HPMF, Nitin Nagrale. He says, out of all the legendary brands of ITC, Bukhara, Peshawari, Dampok, Dakshin, KNK, Pan Asian, Westview, Tian, Royal Vega, which one is your most favorite brand and why?
No, they are, it's like, no, I can't have a favorite, but I think, and it's unfair for me to actually have a favorite, right, Kunal? Because, we need to, and if Zubin is listening to us, and Zubin, look how polite I am being in politically correct. I hope that I won't have to pay for my next meal in ITC hotels. Since we can't have a beverage, please give us a karobar in your very expensive cars. I particularly like your yellow Chevrolet or whatever you call it. So my answer is very simple. There are some brands which are going to become even more relevant because of their design or the way they've been designed. For instance, I was showcasing Royal Vega, not because I love it. Of course, I love it. But the way it's been panned out, the khasa, it's an individual meal, right? And so therefore, to answer Antoine's question about what does he call it? Long distance dining. Sorry, what did you say?
Contactless.
Contactless dining, not long distance dining. Sorry, that's what you guys are doing all the time. Is that because it's got a cloche. It's got a cover, it's sealed, it's safe. So I think some of those brands are ready to roll without any tweaking, Some of the other brands which I've actually grown up with, I told you, if I was to have a favorite restaurant, then Dampok is very much a favorite restaurant. But they'll have to tweak their, their service design and their Huzuri. The problem with, in spite of technology, and this is not true of, this is true of all of us. We've adapted to technology, but we have too much of Huzuri, Hazuri, good morning, sir. All that will have to go. This whole attitude of peri pena, thank you, at least in North India, there is this compulsion to be friendly, right? And I keep differentiating between friendly and warm. Warm is what technology aids me. So Kunal Vijaykar's, my love for Kunal is based on the warmth that I know from his guest history, or what I read, in the media, right, or on his films, or what we've just heard him speak. My understanding of Antoine's needs also happens to be on guest history, and that is warmth. So the friendly nature of this business, welcome G, hello G, how are you G, how was your flight G, kithe G, left, right G, hello G, bye-bye G, it's not going to work anymore, So I'm saying that, so there are some brands which are ready to roll because they haven't got capacity utilization maximized. They are sparse, they're like old-fashioned dining rooms. They keep a different distance between one table and the other because the requisition or the requirement were large plates. The distance between one cover and the other cover are already planned. For instance, in Royal Vega, the distance between, because of the khasa, which is...
of the plate itself.
It's almost, sorry to say that, it's almost 30 feet, right? 30 inches, right? So the 30 inches. So it's a round. So the other 30 inches on the other side and the 30 inches on my right and the 30, it required that kind of space management. So the width of the table became by default much wider. Okay. So remember that, this is so conventional wisdom is what a great place to go and eat, right? And if Zubin can pull it off and do what he's done at Royal Vega in some of the other brands, right? Then why shouldn't we go? I mean, we'd love to go there, right?
So any first among sequels?
Okay, yeah, to him, mama.
पूछ रहे हैं.
नहीं बताएंगे. It all goes back to the book. Listen, I have a very interesting thought. When you speak of ITC brands, there's one brand which I think has great potential in these days, which is your ready-to-eat brand.
Yeah.
You know, if you were to, if I still have fear of going into Bukhara or Dampuk, but if I can get that same Kali dal without having to order it out of a packet and it tastes as good, and there is a couple of things in those packets. What is it, Master Kitchens of India or whatever they're called.
Fantastic.
Oh, there's one biryani which I'd never imagined eating a biryani out of a sealed packet. Okay,
Excellent.
and with mutton in it, which is not bad at all.
Absolutely.
So that's one you could sort of go haywire with that brand.
I must tell you a very happy story on the Dal Bukhara. You know, so we did the World Economic Forum in Davos. You know, it happens every last Thursday in January, and you know, for some reason I was lumped with this over 3 years. Okay, which means you go to Zurich and then you take train, then you go to Minus 30. Anyway. And this time India was the host nation, and there was the dinner that was for 3,000 people. Right? And the requests came, unusual requests came, very unusual. And one of the requests that came was that please serve us the famous Dal Bukhara.
Okay.
Now remember that Europeans don't have any live cooking. You know, they all believe in dry heat. So everything has to be, it's all convection cooking. So it's not as if you can take your burner and start making Dal Bukhara or tandoor. You know, so the story about Dal Bukhara is actually right. It's, you know, it actually, and the reason why Dal Bukhara is not because it's got makhani, but it's the viscosity of the dal. You know, the black lentil has natural viscosity, and it takes 6 to 8 hours to get the viscosity out of the dal. And the buttery nature of the dal is what is called makhani. The makhani is a metaphor. It's not as if you put butter on the dal and, you know. Yeah, but this is what a lot of crappy people are doing. So I've been seeing all these, chef things. Everybody is doing cooking shows. So, you know, and all I can see is there, excuse me, what is the French word for, you know, asa di asa? No, whatever it is. Anyway, posterior. Anyway, because nobody has. So I've been watching all these chefs, and you know, they don't have kitchen suites. They're all cooking on rangers, right? Right through the world, they're cooking on rangers. At least the Indians are, and all we see is the you know, the French way of saying, you know, what asa di asa, and so I'm sick and tired of it. So yes, the question is that. So we asked ITC Food, we said, okay, guys, that, you know, there's this great demand to do Dal Bukhara, and so what they did was they gave us poly packs, you know, gave us these giant packaging which went all the way to Switzerland, right? And we were able to use a frying tilting pan, which is slow cooking, and reheat it, and we served 3,000 people. And I found that a lot of the German chefs stole a lot of that dal, you know, the local German chefs, because they just couldn't get enough of it. And they said, can we freeze it? I said, take as what do you want. So you're right. So the ITC's Kitchens of India, fantastic stuff. Some of the stuff. My problem, Kunal, is that, you know, I'll tell you what. My problem, I want to go out, man. You know,
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I want to go out and I want a little Jai Huzuri. I want to say, hello, Sirji, sir, aage, wapis, you know. I like the Punjabi nature as long as they don't touch me. I mean, I like this Peri Pena ji. I like, you know, like, you guys are gentlemen from Bombay, you know, we are very rogues here. We like all this Ji Huzuri, sir. Oh.
We are snobs.
So one restaurant that I've really liked and which of ITC, and which I think is really very underrated, and I've said this many times, and that is Avartan. Again, with one of Vietnam's.
We gave it, the three of us, but he went and gave it an award, yeah.
Exactly, and I think that is really one of.
It's underrated. It's the top.
That is a superstar restaurant.
It's doing fantastic. It's doing fantastic. Yeah. Business is among one of the best restaurants in India.
I think so, absolutely.
Yeah.
And for me, in terms of modern Indian food,
And Kunal, Antoine, and Gautam Anand, and plus the jury members from Chennai who were very humble and very quiet. I had to go and rip into it. I said, come on, guys, talk about it, yeah. Otherwise, that everybody's favorite restaurant gets the award. I don't want to name the damn favorite restaurant. Everybody's favorite restaurant in Bangalore gets that award, right? And this is not the Epicurean Guild jury, so I'm not going to talk. But it's a fantastic restaurant. Again, ready to, and that's a good point. So, Mr. Nagrale, if he's listening, also pre-plated, right? A lot of the food there is pre-plated. So,
yeah.
So these restaurants are pret-a-manger, ready to roll, right? And if you see the way they've actually physically, their tables, they have those little niches, okay, with those almost like booths there, which is almost like semi-private dining. It also has, it's not overpopulated, so they can get away with this. Absolutely right.
Can I ask you as a hotelier, and even Antoine as a journalist, one of the big problems. See, you are like you are a hotel. You're a hotelier who loves hotels and likes going out to eat. But there is great fear amongst people, and I know a lot of people around me who are still scared shit of this disease. Who have resisted and desisted from ordering takeaway food all these days. Okay, although everybody is saying that, look, it's hot food, it's cooked food, it can't be that bad for you if you just follow basic hygiene, washing your hands and doing all that stuff, not hugging your delivery boy. How do you alleviate the fears of people which is going to be detrimental to the restaurant business? That there will be enough people who say, but why do we need to go out? They may not be Gautam Anands who like going out. They go out because they're going. But there will be people, no, till a vaccine comes, we are not going out anywhere. And I know a lot of people who are doing that.
Yeah.
I have seen some advertising on social media which is trying to build confidence in takeaway food. Everyone is saying, look, we are safe, we washed our hands. I know one restaurant, and I know Anjan Chatterjee actually did this thing where he takes the temperature of the scooter rider and mentions the temperature on the parcel. It's a trick, it's a gimmick, but it's a great gimmick, What are you going to do? What a hotelier is going to do to build confidence that people should come out and actually eat?
Kunal, I'm not entirely sure how. So, from what I'm observing, I'm seeing that there are two kinds of customers really. There is one that, as you kind of put it, is like terrified of going out. And there is one who's just ready to go and doesn't give a shit about what is going to happen. Yeah, they don't give. And I think someone from me was saying that they've been described as like alpha customers. Guys who are going to go out and say, like, we'll go to the bar, we'll go to the restaurant. They don't actually care about physical distancing, about, what the waiter is going to, the server is going to be dressed in, or all of that. People are just going to go out. And I think once we get out of lockdown, for instance, it's a phrase that even Gautam used a couple of days ago, it's going to be a lot of revenge dining, where people are just going to get out to kind of get the steam out of them, just to be out of the house, not be cooped up, catch up with friends over time. The fact that alcohol is not available may be a bit of a deterrent, but simply just freedom to be out, I think that is going to work for a while. To what extent people are going to be actually terrified of going out and all that, I'm really not sure. I know the industry needs to kind of take care of things, and there are a lot of legal issues that would surround, like, someone falling ill at a restaurant. But to what extent people are genuinely afraid of going out, and what number of them, I'm not sure. I mean, perhaps it would be like, a certain group who would be kind of more reluctant, say maybe if you're 50 plus or 60, you might be kind of reluctant. But I think younger than that, I don't know how many people, from what I'm seeing, a lot of people would like the basic necessities, have a clean place. People who are wearing masks. And apart from that, I don't know. I mean, so a lot of people are saying, we're going to go with disposable crockery. We're going to go with disposable glassware, cutlery. Perhaps these things will help. Having clean surfaces where you're going to kind of clean everything up. For instance, like I think Uber is a good way to see how people are going to travel. Because again, that's another high turnover kind of place where multiple customers are using the same kind of physical space, and you don't know who has used it before you. So that kind of sanitation, those kind of hygiene levels, that might be something also that we need to look at in developing confidence for people to dine out at restaurants.
Yeah, so I completely agree with what Antoine is saying, except that, as I think Nakul told me, which I completely agree with him, is that there will be this advent of revenge dining and revenge holidays. For instance, like I have this pent up need to go to, let's say, Dampot or Royal Vega or even Avaratna, which I can't pronounce. My problem is I can't pronounce. I'm Punjabi. I'm challenged by all these Sanskrit words.
But you can pronounce mine. You can pronounce Varatana.
I have a problem, man. I mean, I'm a Saket guy with Maruti and all that. Anyway, but these are fabulous restaurants. So absolutely right. There will be, and I'll tell you what the other thing that Nakul told me, which made a lot of sense to me. He put all his hospital team together. They have a hospital division, and the prognosis at the end of that exercise was that initially there was a need to get rid of the COVID. Then, of course, there was a great, the element number 2 was to try and contain it. Now you just have to coexist with it, right? And, whether we like it or not, our life will just have to keep moving on. And unless you get the practice, how will you pick up the experience? And if you ask me, what is the right time to open a restaurant or a hotel? And the answer is that it's today. It's a question of now, and whatever the guidelines that the government has given or whatever guidelines, these are good guidelines, right? If you follow those guidelines and if you follow what has been not approximated but directed, you're absolutely safe. Otherwise, this corona is there and it's all over the place, and as you can see, it's growing. As far as confidence building measures are concerned, unless you get the practice at hotels, the tangibilizing, restaurants, the tangibilizing, right? But delivery has been really the knight in shining armor. But everybody can't be doing delivery, man. I mean, I'd be damned if I'm going to buy a club sandwich for $1,500. One of those luxury hotels, they have. I don't think so. I'll make my own club sandwich, right? So for everybody to get onto this thing about delivery, it's going to be a challenge, right? Although it's an option that we will have. And do I need to change the way I live? For me, my favorite lockdown story is like this. I go from my balcony to balcony, right? And I go from one balcony, I go from one bedroom to the other bedroom. I've changed beds, I've changed balconies. I've run out of balconies, I've run out of beds, and I've been cleaning loos. So my first job at ITC Maurya when I was a trainee was housekeeping. I had to clean loos. And they gave me a name of Gautam Madam because because when they started training me in F&B, I went and dropped a tray of drinks on the lap of the Commerce Minister. In St. Stephen's College, they don't train you how to hold a tray, no. Yeah. I mean, not that St. Stephen's College trained me how to clean a loo, but in the loo, at least you're in the privation of somebody's loo and you can make a mess. So I put my housekeeping training as a trainee back to practice. So that's what I've been doing. But I'm sick and tired of cleaning loos. I'm sick and tired of being
So am I. I'm sick and tired, and it's taught me nothing, okay? I know a lot of people got lessons out of this lockdown. Oh, we found our inner selves and did this shit, and oh, it was so good to go back to basics. I'm saying F-O. It's the worst experience of my life, and I hope it never comes back again. I'm sorry.
Okay, so on that
I can't make any more banana bread.
So I'm just saying. So
Kunal,
so that is what.
one of the big jokes.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Carry on.
You know, one of the big jokes, I mean, of that everyone's been passing around around Corona is that there's this cartoon with this long line of people, this long serpentine line where people, someone's pointing out and saying, that's the line for the new MasterChef India trials. Because someone has suddenly discovered, like, cooking is the big thing. Everyone's kind of
cooking, man.
being in the kitchen. I've found like it's just this attractive space all of a sudden.
And all you see is people, what do they
And I can't complain. I've been doing a lot.
What do they say? What do they call asa di asa in French? Sorry, I keep forgetting it. I think
The derriere.
the derriere. I mean,
Derriere.
and the other thing that there's been an obsession is everybody's making biryani, man. I mean, hobby chefs are making biryani, women are making biryani, men are making biryani, eunuchs are making biryani, they're making biryani, bisexual people, everybody is making biryani.
I don't care. As long as they send me the biryani, I'm fine.
Yeah, of course.
So here are two questions for Anton and Kunal. Kunal, for you first.
Yes.
This comes from Abhijnan Talukdar. Right? He's an Odia. So he says, I don't remember if you did any show on Odia cuisine. If you did, which particular item from Odisha did you like best and why?
Okay, I'll tell you. We did Orissa, we did Puri, we did Chilka Lake. I did the stuff outside the Jagannath temple in Puri. And now I can't remember exactly what, but there are two things that are etched in my memory. There is one mithai that you get outside the Jagannath temple, Puri Jagannath, which is milk which is boiled and then cooled, which forms a layer of cream on the top.
Yeah.
So, like you pick up the cream from chai sometimes, you can pick that cream up like this, and then put sugar in it, and they roll that cream. And then you make pieces and eat that. And it's a killer. And then on the Chilka Lake, which is quite a wavy, sort of rocky, it's quite a sort of, it's got currents, this thing. We went out, got crab, and then they cooked up this crab on the shores of the Chilka Lake, which is my Orissa. Two things that I remember from Odisha, sorry, So yes, I have been to Odisha, and I'm glad that I did.
I suddenly feel like going to Odisha.
You should go.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So this one for you, Anton.
Bhubanesh is named after Orissa only.
Well, I've got two. I've got a city which is named after my family name, Khanna.
There you go.
Punjab,
yeah.
Bhubaneswar.
Yes.
Yeah. So Anton, this is from Abhinav Reddy. Abhinay Reddy for you.
Okay.
Is writing or having a food blog, does that attract? Oh Jesus, what have they done? I needed to get that ad off. Is food writing or having a food blog good enough to attract readers? Since I believe there are few readers now who are more active on Instagram. Also, do you think Instagram is the new age platform for food blogging?
Okay, I think that food blogging, in a sense, is already dead. And I think that there are very few people who are reading and who can actually get into that length of an article. That's very, very unfortunate. Because personally speaking, I love 1,000 or 2,000 word pieces. I think that's where you can really get into an issue and really understand things. But yeah, I mean, I'm increasingly finding that both Instagram and YouTube actually are where most people are kind of going for any kind of information when it comes to cooking or learning about food or anything within the educational space of food. These are great places, but also places to learn about new restaurants, learn about new foods. I've noticed that a lot of people, and even that's something that I started doing, is sharing recipes on Instagram, and you put up just an image and it doesn't even have to be a video. And people are doing that of all the social media platforms. And if you look at TikTok or Facebook and all the others, Instagram seems to really be moving upward. Insta Lives also are doing really, really well. Um, I remember doing an Insta Live. I mean, just accidentally, really trying to figuring out, what was going wrong with Instagram on my phone, and like just trying it out with a friend. Middle of the night, really, 1:30, 2 o'clock in the night, we decided to kind of do an Insta Live just to check the audio quality, and we had about 15 people join that Insta Live. So it's quite incredible how Instagram has transformed itself into really what I would say the premium food space today.
Excellent. Okay, so for you, Gautam, what cuisine or food items do you think are not quite popular in Delhi and can be introduced in the commercial space?
Oriya food is a great example. I think they have I believe that, I would love to try the Oriya food. In fact, I think a lot of their food has been cannibalized by other regions. And I don't want to create a problem with their neighbors, but a lot of Oriya food, I know I've had that fantastic mustard fish. And, during my time in ITC, we actually invested in a property in Bhubaneswar, and we did a lot of initial work for them, the academic work for them. And that mustard fish that I tried during that, and in fact, the girl who was with us when we started Royal Vega, she is Oriya. And, so we were doing food trials, and I know that Royal Vega doesn't do any fish, but, one is always allowed to cheat because once every week, apart from all that fantastic food that Royal Vega does, we tried her Oriya food. Fantastic food. I'd love to get Oriya food in Delhi. Delhi is, let me tell you, and I know I'll rib you both on the wrong side, but I think Delhi is one of the best places in Asia to eat. And the reason is very simple. The reason is that this is before the COVID crisis. There is so much of diversity in Delhi now. Not when I was growing up. When I was growing up of course, Bhuvnesh must grew up many years later, and Kunal grew up even many more years later. Antoine never grew up at all. The problem with being elder is that, everybody else seems to be younger. And anyway, and I've been here forever. So in the 80s, we were a Punjabi-speaking city, by and large. If you didn't know Punjabi, not because the Punjabis are a majority, because they are so very loud, they're so sakeet and so maruti and so sport that they were all over the place. And don't forget that they brought the tandoori chicken and butter chicken. But because of the employment that the National Capital Region has given them, right? Or that's what the Central Asians did when they started making their ready-to-eat foods, because they couldn't find anything. The Orians and the Biharis and the Malayalis and the people from Andhra, they all have little places to eat. I know that I've been to Korean places and Japanese places and, and the Russian places, because there's so much of their people now populated here, at least, before this damn COVID, that, and a lot of their food was sort of taking shape. I would love to get Bhuvnesh to actually answer your question. That restaurant that Antoine was talking about, which Kunal, me, and Antoine actually fought and gave it an award, which I cannot pronounce because I'm Punjabi and Sanskrit challenged. Avaratna. What is it called, Antoine?
Avartan.
Avartan. I would love to get Avartan, so Zubin is listening, please. Please do that. Apart from the Karo bar, which of course I'm determined to get in your nice expensive cars. I'm sure you picked up many more expensive cars since you've been in Chennai. But I think that's a great brand to get into India. I mean, get into Delhi. Okay, I'm very happy to do that. As far as the other thing that I have an opinion on, which I used to actually resist this for a long time, is this. But I was bullied by Veer Sanghvi for years on this modern Indian cuisine. It was like a tug of war. We must go here. You don't know anything. You're useless. You only like Bukhara and Dampuk, which is true. Which is between you and me. If I had a quiet, option, I would go and quietly eat that. As long as Zubin doesn't give me a bill. But I like this modernizing of So I think it's in tandem with what we've been hearing from our Prime Minister. Think global, but become vocal about local. I like what these guys have done in Chennai. And I was at another restaurant, in InQ at Friends Colony, which is open at the Manor. Very nice. Pre-plated, clean food, simple ingredients, no garam masala and all that rubbish, no oil. Any food which is layered. That's why I see all these chefs making. There are some exceptions, of course. When you layer food, it's like the butter dal. The dal makhani is not, as I told you, it's not the butter, it's the viscosity. When you start putting butter, a bad cook will keep putting butter. So that's what's happening. I love the simplicity of pre-plated food. I like the six tastes of India. I like its ingredients, and as long as a chef and I don't need a chef's attitude or their skill. I like the technique, right? And if I can get one of those, many more, and I think that restaurant in Chennai, the Avaratna, is like that. It's fantastic, beautifully plated, clean, white plates. I like white plates.
But Gautam, do you know that there is a restaurant in Delhi which does a Bombay cuisine better than any restaurant in Bombay does?
Which is called?
Which is Rustam's Bonu.
I've been fantastic. It's like Zubin.
It is the best Parsi food that I have eaten in India. It beats any Parsi restaurant in Bombay.
Absolutely. In fact, I must give credit to Zubin. So he bullied me and Bindu when she was still here. And we drove off to the Rustam Bonu at Aurobindo Road or somewhere. I think they moved elsewhere. It was fantastic.
They moved to Zafar Shah Road now.
Yeah, they moved to Badshah. Fantastic. I agree with you. It's absolutely. It was really like a hidden jewel. Really like. So
it's a lovely place.
Absolutely.
And she worked for me earlier when I was the.
Such nice people they
are. The hotelier, I mean, she's from the hotel industry, and finally went out there and started fabulous stuff.
Absolutely, Zubin took us there, and I think they also have another brand called Blue Tokai, which is a fantastic coffee cafe or whatever, and they do a fantastic coffee, which I love, by the way. I love.
But I must tell you, my son packs the Blue Tokai coffee.
Well, if you ask Zubin, he'll tell you to please pack Sunbeam coffee, and then Kunal will give one oblique message to say, हाँ plug दे रहा है, तो फिर खाना भी तो खिलाता है.
चॉकलेट के बारे में बात करना भूल गए आप.
अच्छा, एक कुणाल
तो खाना खिलाता है.
Gautam is solely plug 111.
You are like Wajid Ali Shah. The only thing you have to do now is to expose one of your, Wajid Ali Shah's character was at Angar Kha, right? And he was patently like Kunal, as good looking and as cherubic and as pretty. And of course, he was nothing practically below his Angar
Kha.
There were and lots of asa, vade. And then he would deftly open his button and would expose, one of those. So if you just have, and those, I don't want to talk about this because this is a family show, but all you have to do is to Google Wajid Ali Shah, and if you can think of Kunal Shah and Wajid Ali Shah, so for all the meals that we all had together, Kunal, me, and you. And we should thank, ITC, okay, including favorite chocolates, which last time when you came here, you went and took away fabulous chocolates. Also.
I did actually.
Kunal, here is Anand Madia who has a message for you.
Yes.
The new Lucky restaurant was a favorite of Hussain, the painter. And he gifted the owner a painting which is displayed in the restaurant.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
He gave me one.
The new Lucky restaurant in Ahmedabad.
I must tell you what he did to me. So if you go to, he did the same thing to me. I must tell you that. Now that, sorry, I'm intervening, but Hussain Saab and he called me. I mean, we were friendly because we belong to the same area. He used to live in Jangpura. I lived in Nizamuddin, and he would walk barefoot. For some reason, he took to me, and I knew Shamshad, his son. And when I was at the ITC Moda, he would just walk in and he would say that he wants a room to rest and all that. And then one day he said, Gautam, I have a very good recipe of kebab. I wanted to call it after me. I wanted to call this kebab Fida Hussain kebab. Kebab Fida Hussain, and he gave me the recipe, and God, he drove me nuts to, we made the damn kebab, and, every time he would criticize it, theek nahi hai, wo theek nahi hai. And then over this period of 3 or 4 years, he painted for me. And, I said that, now that I've given you so many kebabs, we had a kebab festival. It was called Jashn Kebab. And he was very thrilled and excited. I said, we'll do 101 kebab because, it's like it's like those, what are the Arabian Nights, right? So he would tell me so many stories over this one kebab Fida Hussain that we kept inventing, thanks to his, his criticism, many kebabs. So at the end of that exercise, we had 101 kebabs, so we did Jashn Kebab. And he painted a very nice apron for us, which incidentally, when you go to Bukhara, if you go,
yes, I have it.
So what I did was, because I'm such an honest guy, and so I took the original apron and went and had it framed and got it nailed in the Bukhara, had it grouted in the Bukhara. And then, of course, we had to replicate it. So if you're nice to the Bukhara and you are a big spender, which means that you actually pay with a bona fide card and you don't go with Zubin or Gautam, and you give very good gratuity and you promise to come back, then they'll give you a Bukhara apron.
I have one.
You have one? Okay.
Yes, I do.
So do I.
You must have got it because you threatened them.
No, never. I threatened them because I went to where you'll get very upset with me when I say this. I went in, there was no place to sit. Then they said, oh, ek chair. I said, I want something with a back. I cannot sit on backless stools.
So the good thing about, Kunal, the good thing about being live on social media is when you don't remember names, they are told to you.
Prompted.
So Krishna Sai says, Kunal is talking about Sara Papudi.
Oh, is that what it's called? I'd forgotten what it was called.
Sara Papudi.
Sara Papudi.
That milk malai with chini.
Beautiful.
So I can see an entrepreneur, entrepreneurship for a great Oriya restaurant in the National Capital Region, right?
Yeah.
And
but you're right, Gautam. I find that the people in Delhi are far more open to different cuisines.
Yeah.
The food in Delhi is better than Bombay. I have to admit, being a hardcore, loyal Mumbaikar. But I envy you people in Delhi because your food is really good. I think it also comes because of a large part of the people in Mumbai who can afford to eat out are vegetarians. So you don't get the kind of excitement in meats that you get in Delhi.
Plus there's ethnicity. So I think, what's happened is all over the country, or in fact all over the world. So like the Central Asians had a need for grocery. All these guys started off with little, hole in the walls, providing small spices. And I know that a lot of people from Kerala, for instance, they started giving you that, their own version of sambar powder because they did not like the Madras sambar powder. And, so let me tell you, like the Punjabis are not a homogeneous community. The Southern Peninsula is also not homogeneous, right?
It's not.
Yeah. So everybody got their own little niche and all that. And that's what the future of food is going to be. It's not just about regional. I think it's going to be based on smaller communities and so on and so forth. Anyway, now we haven't had fun for a long time. And so men since you're not forte and I am sexte, you say men get forte when they turn naughty when they turn 40. And men, and then 50, of course. But all three of you are 30, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I have a small limerick that I'd like to start off with, because I said let me do a limerick, and Bhuvnesh, you can if it's a little naughty, then you can mask it off. But I thought we'll do a limerick. I'm sort of getting a little tired of all this hotel business now. Okay. So I quite like this limerick, which I was. So it says, and I quote, there was a young lady from Darjeeling. There was a young lady.
Yes.
Not only you Bombay guys have an English accent, I also have a nice English accent. Yeah. Not just sport and skate. I can also. So there was a young lady from Darjeeling who could dance with such exquisite feeling. Not a murmur was heard, not a sound, not a word, when all the buttons of the gentleman hit the ceiling. Okay, what, Antoine, let's have a limerick from you about a man from Bangalore.
At all. This is not my fault. Kunal should like take it up.
No, I don't know any limericks by heart, man. There's always been there was a guy from Bengal who some things I don't know. It's too dirty, man, and I can't remember them also.
Okay, so the other thing that we were talking about is, so we've discussed contact-less dining, and we've said that it's going to be contact light. We've agreed on what restaurant would you go to first, and we've all agreed that thanks to Zubin's hospitality, and since we will not be carrying a credit card because of the COVID crisis, we will certainly go to one of Zubin's restaurants, where we will be happy to accept his hospitality, and we will collectively give very big plugs. By the way, Antoine, you still need to give me a plug for my holiday. I took you free meals to Nizamuddin. No plug has come.
I've given you several plugs, Gautam, okay? I mean, you need to catch your mark. You need to catch Bindu now for this.
Okay, so the other thing that I was talking about is cooking we've discussed, favorite story. Okay, so I'm saying I want you to tell me, Kunal, especially you and Antoine actually, is your favorite nursery rhyme.
Oh, crap.
Just 4 lines of your favorite nursery rhyme. Then I have one only. I have a nursery rhyme for both of you.
Okay, shall I?
Yeah.
Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. God knows what they did up there. They came down with a daughter.
Ah, Lara.
My God, that's the only one I remember as well.
Come on,
Little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet. Huh? Little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet? No?
No. Jack and Jill this is the only one that I remember.
Which one?
I can't remember any of the other ones.
Okay, I'll tell you one which I remember, and this is for both of you. This is for Antoine and Kunal, and this is for you. And it says, Hindi se kyun bezar? Hindi se kyun bezar? I mean, why don't you speak Hindi? Punjabi se kyun bezar? Why don't you speak Punjabi? English se kyun itna pyar? English se kyun itna pyar? Chhaddo nakhre honte yaar. Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
Wow. Bahut achhe. I have loved.
Hello.
I have loved.
Twinkle, little star. So, in my misgiven or mistaken new profession of being a writer of complicated languages, I used to speak and there was no response till I started doing this limericks with English and
Hindi mixed.
Now I get a lot of recognition.
I think you should write a book.
Okay, so there's one more. Bhuvnesh, you have to answer this question as well. Just because you are the the director and big boss and all doesn't. But then you are my younger brother, and you should.
Really?
Okay, what if you were locked down for an extended period of time? What ingredient or what staple, and you were allowed only one staple, Antoine, one staple for the next 2 months or 3 months, and what would you get locked down with? You're just one staple. I'm not talking about spices and all that. All that is allowed. Salt, pepper, spices, all that is relishes and all are allowed. One big ingredient.
So who takes that first?
Antoine, whose name
I'll take it.
See how beautifully I pronounce his name. Bhuvnesh, Antoine. Tell me.
Absolutely.
Pronounce.
So for me, it's Goa sausage.
Antoine, go ahead.
For me, it's Goa sausage.
Goa pork sausage.
I mean, that's it.
Okay, so you are going to be locked down with pork sauce. Fair enough. Why not? Absolutely. So we are assuming you have onions and tomatoes and bread and all that, which is fine.
Absolutely.
And now we come to the hapless Wajid Ali Shah with his exposed,
Okay, I have two things that I would like to get.
As usual, you must always have two. Why can't you just have one? Okay. No.
One is potatoes.
Yeah.
And two is eggs. And you can vary your meals continuously then, you know. Eggs is a great ingredient. You can do soft, hard, fluffy, bhurji, meringues, anything. Baked dishes, aerated, unaerated. Eggs is a great ingredient. I'm a big fan of eggs.
Yeah,
I love eggs too. Okay, because you know, but in my case, Bhuvnesh, please tell us your favorite ingredient. Yeah,
I could live on greens, any greens, bok choy.
You can only choose one, na Bhuvnesh. Just because you're my younger brother, you can't.
I said greens, bok choy.
Bok choy. तू पॉक चॉय खा के तेरे को कोरोना हो जाएगा, बता रहा हूँ मैं।
नहीं होगा, मैं वेजिटेरियन आदमी हूँ वैसे भी।
पॉक चॉय भी तो वेजिटेरियन ही है ना, वो चाइनीज खा के तो यही होता है।
हाँ, so I freak out on greens.
तो ये वेजिटेरियन से अभी एक आखिरी लिवरिक बोलते हैं फिर।
And I'm glad
there was a young lady from Madras who had a magnificent ass. Not rounded and pink, as you probably think. It was grey, had long ears, and ate grass.
So for 1 hour 45 minutes, I waited for this for 1 hour 43 minutes.
You haven't asked me my favorite ingredient.
आपकी है, आप बोलो.
You know, because I am so researched and complicated, and nothing life for me is simple. I always have to go back in the past. I live in the past. So I found out that the best ingredient, and so Emperor Shah Jahan was imprisoned by Aurangzeb, you know, the cruel, and he was imprisoned in the Agra fort. And he was the Mir Bakawal, the controller of the household. And remember, the Shah Jahan was imprisoned along with his daughter, Jahanara. Okay. And I am not suggesting anything else. They were just imprisoned. Okay, there are some rumors and all that, but we will not talk about that. And so the Mir Bakawal, or the controller of the household, was told by the Mir Bakawal of the Red Fort that the decree is very simple. You can only choose one principal agreement, one principal ingredient. And so the Mir Bakawal went to Hazur-e-Ala, went to the older emperor who had not been deposed in the old fort, because he had spent all the money, the treasury, on the Taj Mahal. He said, Hazur-e-Ala, Jahanpana, aap dal mangiye. So he said, aap dal mangiye, और दाल की इतनी बरकत है कि आप दाल दीजिएगा, उसमें हम दाल की गोश्त बनाएंगे, दाल की रोटी बनाएंगे, दाल के चावल बनाएंगे, दाल मतलब के तो उन्होंने दाल मांगी, हम भी वही करेंगे। दाल का देखिए आप इतना कुछ बनता है, उसमें गोश्त भी पड़ सकता है, मुर्ग भी पड़ सकता है, सब्जी भी पड़ सकती है, वो भुवनेश की पॉक चॉय भी पड़ सकती है, और आपकी अपनी कुनाल की
अंडे और आलू भी
पड़ सकते हैं, और आंतवान जो कि खा के वो चुरीजो है ना, वो तो चुरीजो ही कहते हैं ना उसको, चुरीजो, तो वो दाल, तो ये कहानी जो है, and it is true, it is a testament, and I'm not saying that the munificence of the dal. I mean, look at the munificence of what we can do with that humble dal. We can do so much with it, and that's what the emperor did. And I think he was in exile for a long, long time.
क्योंकि आखिर में हम ये कहेंगे कि दाल में कुछ काला है.
Tell me, so can we do one more? Can we do a stand-up? I mean, it's a stand-up challenge, and those of you who are undressed can run.
If I stand up, my boxers will be exposed.
Antoine, what are you wearing down under, may I ask?
Sir, I am very well prepared, so.
5 बज गए यार.
Bhuvnesh, तू भी की पे आके है मजे, तूने कपड़े वाले पहने हुए हैं ना नीचे? हाँ, शाबाश.
अरे.
That's like a corporate executive. Shabash, very good.
So
I want to hand over the baton to you, Bhuvnesh. I think we've had a nice long
So
chat.
I think it's been a wonderful session. I mean, I'm truly blessed to have three legends here, right? And
Always, and remember, in my case, super legend because I'm the oldest.
yeah. Though I have a more safed dadi than you. Okay, having said that,
I have a lot of safed if I open my buttons and.
बस वो वाजिद अली शाह के लिए
Kunal,
but Gautam is the oldest and the best looking also.
Yes, he is.
That is true.
but
let me tell you.
But you guys haven't seen my Wajid Ali Shah.
Yeah. So once when you're over here in Delhi, we'll have a blast over a
Nizamuddin jana hai. I am the only person in this.
और मेरे घर के ऊपर घर में भी where me and Gautam we create a meal at home from what we know of our generation, from our elders. My maternal side and Gautam's side, they came from Multan, so we must do something on that. And I think you will be stunned by the cuisine which comes from there.
I look forward tremendously.
And also we must do a Delhi city trip, right? So we will walk you through the gullies and kuchas and take you to the dirtiest places for the best food.
क्या बात करता है?
Dirtiest places.
On that, let me tell you again. Can I give you a couplet on Delhi's food? Is it possible?
Yeah.
Is it possible for me to do a complicated couplet which nobody understands?
As long as it does not contain the line "Asa hi asa."
That is all about that. So so basically it says, हाल ए दिल, दिल्ली सुनाने के काबिल, ये किस्सा है दावत और मेहमान नवाजी के काबिल, बरसों से मुकम्मिल वो ख्वान इसके, जेनरेशनल कुजीन, बरसों से मुकम्मिल वो ख्वान इसके जो आज भी खिलाने और खिलवाने के काबिल, जो आज भी खाने और खिलवाने के काबिल, जो आज क्या गजब है, क्या गजब है, क्या अदब है. How wonderful this is. How courteous this is. क्या गजब है, क्या अदब है, खूबसूरत ये सफर है, हाले दिल, दिल्ली की ख्वान की काबिले मुकाबिल. तो ये है खूबसूरती दिल्ली के खाने की. और therefore I am going to end this only with a couplet from Faiz Ahmed Faiz. He says कि आंखों में फिर फूल महके, आंखों में फिर फूल महके, दिल में वाजिद अली शाह, कि दिल में वाजिद अली शाह, दिल में फिर शमा जले. आज तसव्वुर ने लिया हम सबको दिल्ली के बज़ में जाने का नाम, दिल्ली का खाने का अंजाम. That we want to go and eat Delhi cuisine. Together.
So we will do a Delhi trip together with Anton and Kunal, me.
It will be a pleasure.
Yes.
And so we should cap this. We've been here now for an hour and 50.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kunal. Thank you for your time.